a big hello and welcome to my show Unbound. I'm your host Mamtaa, a space curated for real stories of people from different walks of life who have sailed through uncharted waters and lived to tell their inspiring story. Unbound is a deep dive into their journeys to unravel, unearth, uncover various facets of their lives as they remain unstoppable and continue to do the unthinkable. As they open up about their life with me, I'm sure you will find nuggets of wisdom to live unbound too. So let's unbound together. Today, I have with me a communication expert, veteran, and an industry leader all rolled in one. With his nearly 3 decades of experience, he has brought to table many winning solutions for clients and corporates alike. Building a culture of continuous learning and development, he is also a big believer of power of coaching to catalyze positive changes in the society and workplaces. Currently, the founder of Soul to Soul Coaching, he is the executive director at Adfactors, a multi-specialist full-service firm. And today, he is graciously agreed to join us and share his wealth of insight and wisdom. He is none other than Nikhil Dey. Hi, Nikhil. Welcome to my podcast, Unbound.
Hi, Mamtaa. Excited to be here and can't wait to see where you take us.
Nikhil, there are just so many spaces to explore. I have given a very brief intro about you, your work, and your profile, but I really want you to start right from the beginning and introduce us to who Nikhil Dey is, your family background, your education, professional, personal pursuits, hobbies, passion. We want to know it all.
Okay, so back down memory lane I go. I grew up in the south of India. Studied up in Ooty and in a boarding school over there, and then found my way to college in Chennai. My dad and mom are career planters, and dad runs a beautiful homestay resort in Wayanad, Kerala right now. And that was where I began my journey, my family of origin. I am now married. My beautiful wife, Diva, and I share the same profession. We met many years ago in the same agency, had a whirlwind office romance, and touch wood, have managed to find our way to this point. And in the last 26 years in the communication world, I've loved every minute of it. And for the last 4 or 5, the intersection of coaching and communication is what has caught my fancy. So I hope that gives you a flavor of where I come from.
Oh, yes. And I can definitely smell a lot of awesome brewing coffee in that flavor. So very interesting. Coming from south of India and making a dent for yourself with such a interesting career. Again, I would say PR is an interesting career because it's not really very often do we find men at the helm in a sector like PR. So what really got you interested to this industry, and how has it been, sort of covering the length and breadth of the country from south to north?
Honest answer on what got me into PR really was when I did my BA in economics. When I finished that from Loyola in Chennai, I thought I was a cat's whiskers. I wrote the CAT entrance exam, very sure that I would get in. I wanted to do my MBA. And I didn't. So I then decided to do my MA in economics. And the next time around, I wrote all the entrance exams for every conceivable MBA institute in the country. And I found my way to a place called IMI, New Delhi, International Management Institute. Now, I was aiming for IIM and I found IMI. So not too far off, just a few letters interchanged. But in that course, I actually had Dilip Cherian as a teacher. So he introduced us to written and oral communication. And we had a wonderful course in advertising. So I was clearly drawn to the communication arena in my MBA days. And then I was thinking of what do I want to do? And advertising at that time was mainstream. But something told me that maybe I need to be a bigger fish in a small pond rather than a small fish in a big pond. And I jumped into the PR world, which was really tiny, and joined an agency called Clear. And I haven't looked back. I've loved every minute of it, and I wouldn't change anything if I had to. So I love public relations, and I love what the potential of the discipline offers. And because it's quite often not understood and many people don't know what it is, I see that as a huge advantage because you can go anywhere in that space as long as you have the courage and you're fearless and you're willing to explore and push the envelope of what PR is.
Very well said, Nikhil. We are just 6 minutes into this conversation. And believe you me, had it not been for this conversation, I would have never agreed or placed my bets on that. Okay, Nikhil did not come from a PR background. So this is completely unfathomable while on the one end, but it's completely kind of fits all the jigsaw pieces of the puzzle that you were meant to be here, and nobody can say that you do not belong or this was not a thought over decision, even though it was not. That brings me to my next question, that obviously you did not have your path all laid out, but what really makes you unbound? I mean, where have these life transforming incidents or events are there mapped out in your memory that have actually changed you as a person or has put you in a place of no return? Inspirations, challenges, eureka moments, where are all of those?
So I think, there have been many, but one that absolutely stands out for me, actually, where the coaching journey and the communications or PR journey intersect. So after many years with Genesis, I moved to Weber. And in the first few weeks of me joining Weber, I remember sitting one Sunday night. I think my Deepa was traveling, and I was sitting in my lazy boy chair. And I had worked with coaches for a long time. I had organizational sponsored coaches, and I found huge value in being coached. Helped me a lot in my career. And I just thought to myself, you know what, Nikhil, I think you'd make a damn good coach. Why don't you take a course? So I sent off a few messages, actually three different people, not expecting a reply. But within half an hour, all three of them replied in the affirmative saying, yes, go for it. And all three of them pointed me to the same course. It was a course by a chap, master coach called Peter J. Redding, called Coach for Life. And they said, you should go for it and do this course. And I'm a planner, right? I normally like to research stuff, think through things, do all sorts of analysis. In this instant, I just signed up the next day, right? I just jumped in. I didn't think it through. And I'm so glad I didn't, because I haven't looked back since. So I think that's an example of when I've trusted my intuition or just allowed myself to be led by serendipity. It's really been magical.
Awesome. And I mean, just as I said that 8 minutes before this conversation, nobody would have said that Nikhil Dey is here, not by design, but by default. The same way I would say goes for coaching, that you were really meant to be where you are and you're doing a fab job at it. And that brings me to some of the personal inquiries here. You know, while you are spending all this time in a fairly glamorous industrial sector like PR, with so many people, teams, corporates, have you ever encountered conflicts in this journey, internal conflicts, certain things that have really detracted you sometimes, criticism, any kind of vice that you got taken over by? And if yes, then how have you really put yourself together and come back from there?
Wow, I could talk for 2 hours on this topic, Mamta, of adversity and finding myself in tough spots. This is back when I was with Clear PR, and I didn't know there was something called a weekly meeting that used to happen. So I had happily gone out for lunch. I came back and I found the office empty. The secretary said, "Oh my gosh, Nikhil, you're in so much trouble. You're going to get yelled at." And I was like, "What did I do wrong? I just went out for lunch, right?" And then she said, "No, the weekly meeting has started and you missed it." And anyhow, so I knocked on the door. I heard a gruff voice saying, "Who's that?" And then I opened the door and I was told, "Shut the door and get out." So that was the first impression I made with the bosses of my new job, right? 1 week old, freshly minted MBA, trying to impress. And I had started off on a really terrible note. And cut to the second week, it got worse, because by this time I had made it into the meeting. I was ready with my weekly report, and I was called up to say, "Who's that new guy who missed the meeting last time?" And I put my hand up and I said, "It's me, sir." And said, "Give me your report." And I went and gave the report. And the person chairing the meeting looked at it and flung it on the ground and said, "Is this the way you write a report? You know, there are formats here." And said, "Please bring me your weekly schedule. What are you supposed to be doing this week?" And then I said, "But sir, I left it at home." So that didn't go down too well. I was told to go out to the secretary and get a printout of the weekly schedule. I ran out, got it, really worried, came back and gave it to the gentleman who was chairing the meeting. And he looks up at me and he says, "Is your name Prem Ramachandran?" Because I had taken the wrong printout. As in, I hadn't taken the wrong printout, but I hadn't checked that I had been given the wrong printout. And then I was told to put my hands out, and that piece of paper was torn up into 100 tiny little pieces, dropped into the palms of my hand, and I was then told, "I don't know who hired you. I don't know why we hired you, but we don't need people like you in this firm. Please get out of this meeting." So for the second week in a row, I missed the meeting. So that's my start or entry into the world of public relations. So from there, that's one of the first big, hurdles that I had to overcome. And maybe the last thing I'd say about that is there is kindness in people, because there was one now friend, but at that time just a senior in the organization, a gentleman called Rajesh Dubey. He found me on the terrace of that building. I was in tears, obviously, thinking that I was going to get sacked and how would I go home and tell my dad I've lost my job. And he came and gave me a hug and he said, "Naire Nikhil, he likes you. Don't worry. That's why he's catching you. And only people he likes, he goes after." And just that hug made such a difference at a time like that from a stranger. So I think there is kindness in people, and that can help one get over lots of conflict and adversity.
Such a lovely anecdote, Nikhil. And I think, being a PR person myself, I can not help but relate with this so much, that the kind of pressures, the kind of impeccability, precision, timeliness that is expected out of this profession can actually, sometimes really be unnerving. That's such an interesting anecdote. Thanks so much for sharing that one. And it kind of also, I'm sure, to all the listeners, gives a quick sneak into what a life of a PR professional can be.
Well, Mamtaa, your question I know was a much more serious one, and this episode, of course, did happen. And it now, on a spectrum, if you were to line up people in a room and say tall people on one side and by height you stand, you will find that there is a height order that emerges. And similarly, if you line up people in those who run away from conflict and those who run towards conflict, there is also a spectrum of people. There are some people who love a good fight, and there are some people who don't. And neither are good or bad, but I think it's important to understand where you sit on that spectrum or where I sit on that spectrum. And what I have learned with the help of many, many qualified professionals who brought this to my awareness is that in my head, for a long time, I had said conflict equals bad. Conflict is bad, therefore keep the peace. Conflict is bad, therefore don't fight. But what I have been educated and now recognize is oftentimes much good can come from healthy conflict. From a creative argument, two different people challenging each other, which is conflict, can emerge some brilliant ideas and campaigns and solutions. The ability to now, I don't say I like conflict still, but to deal with it, to embrace it with openness, and therefore navigate it, is something that I have learned. It's a skill. And I think that's important for people to recognize.
Absolutely. And there comes the pearl of wisdom, the much sought pearl of wisdom from you, Nikhil. Thanks for that sharing. I'd just like to add one more piece on that. Is it because of the fear of judgments? Is it because you would always either be in a place thinking that, oh, I will get judged as somebody who is creating chaos and conflict? Or is it certain notions or preconceived ideas that you want to abide by? Why would you not be okay with not being okay?
So I think everybody has a different reason. For those who don't enjoy conflict, most of it will probably trace back to some childhood or formative years experience. I honestly haven't done that hard work of going back to find out what are probably the root causes in my case. What I have been able to ascertain is that I don't enjoy it, and I need to find a way, because as a leader, one has to be able to navigate conflict efficiently. So that much I have been able to do. And maybe that's something that you have reminded me that I need to do some more work on, to go back to figure out what really is at the root of it. But I haven't done that work yet, Mamta.
At Unbound, we believe in the power of unhinged minds and untamed ideas of people from all walks of life. As we sit to talk with some of them, we are listening to your voice too. So, share your ideas, thoughts, or takeaways from this podcast as a review on Apple Podcast, or just drop us a message on Instagram @d.mamtaa. That is @d.mamtaa. You can also mail us at unboundwithmamtaa@gmail.com. And remember to subscribe and follow this podcast and stay connected with us.
So while Nikhil is on that journey, I would want this to be a nudge point for all of us to really see that what is it that they are resisting or not wanting to confront. And if so, then why is it so? So anyway, coming back to the show, and what I would really want to now know from you, Nikhil, is that what is your biggest FOMO? What is that one thing that gives you a fear of missing out?
Yeah, this is a tussle between what I call being and doing, right? I see Nikhil, the human being, and Nikhil, the human doing. And I love the doing, right? The more I do, the more accomplished I feel. The more I do, the more I feel I'm achieving. And I have to keep reminding myself that, the natural cycle of life is one of opening and closing. It's circular, right? It's like a tree. There is a time of the year when a tree blossoms, puts out all its leaves, gives its fruit to the world. There's a time of the year when a tree then sheds its leaves and goes inwards and rejuvenates, and then once again can offer. That's just the nature of nature. And I don't know, maybe it's modern consumerism or just the more growth, keep growing, keep doing more, keep doing more, keep doing more. That is where I think I sometimes struggle with FOMO, that if I don't do more, I don't grow. Whereas I like examples. So I was down, as you know, with COVID again for the second time a few weeks ago. And I had a forced pause, right? I was lying in my bed, fever. So for a few days, I had to hit the pause button. But in those few days, Nikhil was just being, right? He wasn't doing anything. And in that being phase, so many new ideas emerged. So much clarity came. So much of me was reminded of what's important versus what's urgent. So I think this tussle between the being and the doing, and the fact that FOMO of doing is good and just being is not enough, is what I am constantly balancing.
Well, you completely have me tongue-tied like any communication expert would, Nikhil. And I mean, I'm enjoying this conversation. The whole capability to just go so deep in, dive so deep in, and come with such beautiful answers and reasoning at that. So, okay, coming to from FOMO, I would take the conversation to JOMO. So, what is your joy of missing out? Things that you're very happy to miss out.
Oh, that's an easy one. I am an introvert, or at best an ambivert. So I'm very, very happy to miss out any large gathering, right? So give me a choice. Leave me with two friends and a single malt, or a book and a beach, or hillside and a fishing rod in my hand, and I'm in joy. Put me in large groups and I am struggling for oxygen. And imagine, as a public relations professional, the number of large group encounters I have to navigate. So the joy of having small, I guess, intimate conversations, like I enjoy this. I love the fact that it's just the two of us having a chat and exploring something. Yeah, that's my joy.
Awesome. And I was just coming to that as the next question, that then how do you find a fit in a profession like PR? Publicly and popularly, it is known to be a place of glamour, a place of people being together, a place of publics being around, where there is a client side, there's a media side, there is a team side. There are just so many day on day public interactions. So how do you see yourself then really making that fit? I hope you're not, how are you bringing that all up on the surface then, if it's so deep down not with what you resonate?
Well, I think the solutions that I've found is, let's start with how I define public relations. My favorite definition of public relations is a really simple one. It's public relations is doing good and then getting credit for it. Networking is about helping people. So for example, Mamtaa, you and I don't know each other well. We are connected by an industry. We follow each other online, and you pinged me and said, Nikhil, would you do this? I didn't ask you anything other than, yes, let's do it, right? Because I learned something from this and I may help you. You seem to be on an interesting journey of nurturing your dream of being a podcaster, and it could be a win-win conversation. So that's how I embrace the space of public relations with my own lens, and I find that congruent with who I am. So therefore, there's no conflict.
That's a point well said, Nikhil. But what I also feel that it's a very, very individualistic perspective. This is not something that every PR person will be able to tread on or will be able to anchor himself or herself to believe that, okay, this is how I'm going to approach PR. So it's a great way, but I would just say that it's all in the eyes of beholders. So for me, it was Nikhil Dey, whom we have always looked up to as this mentor, expert, and as somebody holding that space. And now, as I talk to you as a one-on-one person, it's a completely different ballgame, and it's so much of a human that takes over the professional. So, all compliments to you on that one. Coming to the part that makes you unbound in terms of books that you read, movies that you watch, travels that you take up, interactions that you do, who are and what are these things who influence you the most?
I just turned 51, and Deepa asked me, so Nikhil, what do you want to do for your 51st birthday? And I said, I want to go fishing. I love fishing. I've grown up having an annual trout fishing trip, and I haven't done it for the last 2 or 3 years because of the COVID pandemic. So this year, my son was down from the US, and Deepa, Neil, and I went off to J&K and fished on the Lider River, and I introduced Deepa to fishing. So being with nature, being in nature, enjoying, I would say I'm a more mountain person than a sea person. The hills is what I relate to. So that's absolutely one real happy place. I love trees and the mountains and rivers. Tennis is a big passion. I have been playing tennis for, I don't know, the last 10, 12 years. And I played through school and college. So I love the hour that I'm on the tennis court. And of course, time with my doggies, currently Cookie and all the other doggies that I've loved. So that's a big part of who I am. In terms of holidays, ones that I really love, I would say Scotland was fantastic. Greece was really great. A flavor of home. The people there just reminded me so much of India. They love food. They talk a lot over each other. Religion is a big thing. Japan was fantastic. Just incredible as a people, what they've been able to put together in such great nature. So I think that's part of what I enjoy. In terms of books, I've been going on a new journey of exploration. Deepa loves buying me books, and she buys me all kinds of books. So I'm pushing myself way out of my comfort zone and reading anything and everything that comes my way. So I'm currently reading a book called Catalyst by Krish Shankar. It's about HR and best practices in HR. Yeah, just exploring all kinds of different literature.
Superb. That brings me to the point that the next time I'm taking Deepa on show, I'm definitely asking her the question that is books her way to keep you out of her life?
No, actually, I think, books is her way. She has lots of friends in the literary circle. And as you probably see, everybody is writing a book these days. I don't know who's reading them, but everybody's writing them. And my wife is buying all the books that her friends are writing, and I'm reading them.
But she wants you to read them. Nice one. So what about some of the patterns, Nikhil? I mean, being a fairly, now you've covered this whole journey in PR, and now you're on this self-discovery with coaching as a newfound love, and where you are so much in service to the society and wanting to create something much bigger and beyond you. What are some of the patterns that you've identified for yourself that were actually impossible to break, but you have broken to be who you are today?
Well, I think two. One is I used to play it fairly safe earlier, right? Just as I said, think things through, analyze, make sure I've covered all the bases rather than jump in and see where the river takes me. I've got more into that exploring zone that I'm breaking patterns and just trusting instinct and seeing whether the dots add up, because in hindsight they do seem to. So for just trusting that, so I think that's one pattern. And the other one is, I would say, I'm a very analytic, I'm a thinker, and I struggle with expressing feelings. So I'm on a journey of emotional literacy, trying to get more in touch with all feelings, the good ones, the bad ones, accept them, allow them out, express them. I think that's been a pattern where, as a man, it's been like the last few years have shown me that actually it takes a lot of strength to be able to accept and process and live with all the emotions, the good ones and the bad ones. Actually, I don't even think there are bad ones, just all the emotions. And each of them serve a purpose. I'm on that journey of exploration.
How interesting. And what are some of the things that you had to unlearn the most during this journey? So, of course, while you said that, dealing with being more full rounded as a person, as a emotion that you are as a being, but what many more other things that you had to not only learn, but unlearn to be where you are today?
So I think maybe one of the unlearnings is after I spent a fair amount of time, there was success. I think my ego got a little ahead of me. I lost sight of what was really important. I lost sight of who was really important. And I'm happily have been reminded of those. The pandemic has opened my eyes to so many things around who matters, what matters. And that has just sort of given me a freedom just to be me and to do me and enjoy that and not worry about so much who's watching, who's listening, what will they think. As long as my intent is correct and I am in service of who I believe I am, joyfully being me is a new experience.
How lovely. I just love that phrase, joyfully being you. So, what and how do you clear the lens to bring focus back in life? So, when you're distracted, too disturbed, too overwhelmed, too taken over or possessed by something, how do you really bring yourself back and say, oh, listen, I need to, hike off? Or what are your ways of putting focus back on life and clearing your lens?
A simple way would be, we had blocked an hour together, right, to have this conversation. And therefore, honoring this hour, making sure I respected it, making sure that I cleared my mind before I came in. I'm not multitasking. I'm not trying to do too many. I just want to enjoy this conversation with you, Mamtaa, which I, by the way, am tremendously. Just staying with that. So whatever I'm doing, whether it's this conversation or whatever I do next in the next hour, while I'm doing that, I just try and give the best that I have to that particular task or that experience.
Is there a discipline that you follow?
So half an hour meditation every day. So I call it emotion and motion management, right? So I have to manage my emotions and I have to stay in motion. So some kind of exercise. So if I can do 30 minutes of exercise and 30 minutes of meditation, my day is guaranteed to go well. So these are the two anchor rituals or habits every day that I try and integrate into my life.
What beauty, and my next question was that what anchors you back to your Zen state, and you've already had a premonition and gotten into it and answered it. Amazing. So one big learning, Nikhil, that COVID has been for you personally.
Nothing is promised. Life is precious. Family and the work family, if you are blessed enough to have a extended family that supports you, is an ecosystem that is powerful. And I think the biggest realizing is that we are all connected. As much as we may otherwise pretend not or forget, this pandemic has shown the interconnectedness of the human race. And what I do here has an impact around the world. The responsibility of not forgetting that, not rushing back into the mindlessness of before, I think is something I keep telling myself, Nikhil, don't forget those lessons. Don't be a goldfish.
How honest is that, Nikhil? Amazing. What about maybe one or two mantras that you have to deal with failures and mistakes? See, we all do end up doing things which either were not meant to or were not designed to, but we do hit a rock bottom. There are mistakes, there are failures. have you been able to figure it out for yourself that, okay, this is the way that I can always bounce back? The only way is upward from here.
Yes, actually, I have, Mamta, quite by chance. A few years ago, another friend of mine asked me if I would do a Facebook Live to help him out, and he needed to do it for some reasons. And I said, okay. And I was sitting at my dining table, wondering what I was going to share with him. And I wrote down an acronym to help me think through what I wanted to share. And out of that chat was born what I now call my AEIOU approach to dealing with change and stress and navigating uncertainty. So A stands for anxiety, E stands for energy, I stands for intent, O for others, and U for you. So my mantra is that if I can keep these vowels in front of me, remind myself of what are the things that are causing me anxiety, find ways to energize myself, and I've talked about a few of the things that gives me that energy. So the antidote to the anxiety is the positive energy that I bring every day. The anchor of that is the intent with which I do whatever I do, and then being others focused, O for others, at the same time reminding myself that I must take care of myself, right? Self-care is not selfish. So this framework, and there's of course many more layers to it, but this framework is what, whenever I find myself veering or getting frazzled or getting hassled or losing my way, I just dip into this framework and I'm able to find my balance again.
Oh, well, Nikhil, I think we've never done this on the show, but I'll definitely ask the edit to play some drum rolls on this. I've heard so many of your, lectures and pieces and seen so many videos, and I know your love for acronyms.
Yes, I do love acronyms. It helps me remember.
Yeah.
I have a shitty memory, so
whatever works, and I'm like completely swoon over this. So this brings us to almost the end of the show. We do have a very sort of a fireside kind of a chat and an element to it, which is called a rapid reflex round. Nikhil, are you good to go?
I'm good to go.
All right. So these are a few questions, a volley of questions that I'm going to ask you, and I want the answers in not more than a word or two, maybe. So take a deep breath and we can get started. Okay, so one thing you would like to change about our education system.
Should focus on lifelong learning.
One thing you wished parents never said to their children.
No criticism, positive encouragement.
One thing you wish you knew at the age of 20.
Nobody gives really a shit about who I am or what I'm doing, so just be me.
One thing you wish that you know now.
How do I allow myself to feel?
One thing you wish never existed in this world.
Wow, that's a tough one. I'm stumped. What do I wish didn't exist in this world?
Okay, let's go the other way. One thing you wish which could exist forever.
Mangosteens. I love mangosteens.
Okay, one thing you would certainly like to unlearn from here on in life.
Don't criticize. Focus on the positive. Help people find the best in themselves.
Last tennis match that you watched, Nikhil?
Nick Kyrgios won.
Okay, and your take on Serena Williams' retirement?
She's just legendary. I don't think she may have retired from tennis, but she has a lot more to give the world of sports still.
Awesome. What do you start your day with?
Gratitude.
What your daily diet includes?
Trying to keep a few kilos off.
No, but what does your daily diet must include? Like a must in your daily diet?
Actually, it's what it should exclude.
Okay, I'm chucking that one out. How do you end your day?
A cuddle with my wife.
All right. And what are some of the things you're looking forward to do in this last quarter of 2022?
I want to go to New Zealand. I don't think it's going to happen, but I want to go.
All right. So that kind of brings us to the tail end of the show. And that was truly being Unbound, Nikhil. I had a ball of a time talking to you and just gathering what all Nikhil Dey is all about. And while I would just say on the parting note that while a good coach and mentor can always change the game, a great coach can change a life. And I really wish that you continue your journey, not just by being a game changer, but a life changer for many, many, many of us. So wish you great luck on all that the future holds for you, both by design and by default. Keep inspiring us, Nikhil, and thank you so much for sharing your journey here.
Thank you, Mamtaa. That, as you promised, was a really enjoyable hour spent chatting with you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I would love to know from you what idea or insight you unboxed from today's conversation. Just drop me a message over LinkedIn or in my inbox, and remember to follow this podcast so that when the next episode drops, you can join me for yet another one too. Keep coming and keep unbounding. Till then, this is your host Mamtaa signing off.